Outside, the far-left protesters have descended on Chicago. It's ugly. There's chaos in the city.
Oh, sorry. Didn't see it.
Oh dear. And the activists have tried to break through police lines to storm the venue. Here's Savannah Hernandez with a report.
And as you guys can see behind me, we've got quite a few protesters, and the police have now arrived. Now, they broke through this first barricade, and they were trying to break through the second one that's right behind me. So now police have arrived. There's one key present. Again, this is day one of the DNC.
Josh, I don't recall this sort of violence and disorder in Milwaukee for the Republican National Convention. And can you imagine the media coverage if that sort of carry on was happening around the Republicans? But the Democrats seem to have this problem, the left in general.
Yeah, totally. Look, and I personally have some knowledge here. So that clip that we just saw, the first clip there where they were on the street of Chicago, I lived actually maybe 2 or 3 blocks from where that was. I went to law school in Chicago, and I know that part of the city extremely, extremely well. I mean, what has happened to the city of Chicago over the past decade is nothing short of tragic. I mean, I lived there from 2013 to 2016. It was not exactly a paradise when it comes to crime and law and order. But from then compared to now, it is truly like night and day. The current mayor, Brandon Johnson, makes his predecessor, Lori Lightfoot, look positively conservative, and she was a leftist nutjob herself. The current guy is calling in all the pro-Hamas troops. They are not enforcing the law there in Chicago at all whatsoever. By the way, there was a small group here called the IAC, the Israeli American Council. They've tried to get their own permits to essentially counter-protest the pro-Hamas, the pro-jihadi crowd. The pro-hostage folks, they've had their permits denied. Funny, you might ask. I mean, it's the same people in the Chicago City Hall who are granting all these permits to the pro-Hamas crowd and are not giving out permits to the pro-Western civilization crowd. So, I mean, it couldn't happen to a nicer city, to be honest with you. They really have asked for this. But to your point, Rita, of course, if this were to have happened at the RNC in Milwaukee, it would make all the headlines. And, the irony is they say that it actually is the Republican Party, the party of Donald Trump, that is the threat to democracy. They're the totalitarians. They're the ones who are a threat to our constitutional order and all that we hold righteous and dear in this country, to truth, justice, liberty, and the American way and all of that. I'm sorry, there is one political party here that has literally hundreds of thousands of people flying the flags of U.S. recognized foreign terrorist organizations. And it is not the Republican Party. It is not the party of Donald Trump. So I guess we will see what happens this week. But again, what I'm really waiting to see is whether or not there's going to be an eruption, not just outside the arena, but inside the arena, because that could actually penetrate through this fog and actually, I think, reach independent voters if that does transpire.
Now, Kamala's getting a dream run from the media, and it seems to also be true in social media and even on X, which is supposed to have community notes and these fact checks that happen in real time. I've noticed the official campaign account deliberately puts out disinformation, things it knows to be untrue. I'll show you a little example here. This is a deceptively edited video without context, and it's to pretend that Donald Trump didn't know what state he was in. He didn't know whether it was in Pennsylvania or North Carolina. Have a look.
Now, would that be okay, North Carolina? I don't think so, right? They want me to speak all day.
And the Harris campaign were pointing out he's actually in Pennsylvania. He thinks he's in North Carolina. But Trump knew where he was. He was just acknowledging a group from North Carolina who he had referred to earlier, who go to a lot of his rallies. Have a look at the earlier comment.
I have another group from a place called North Carolina. Has anybody ever heard of North? We love North Carolina. The beautiful ladies over there.
Now, these lies from the Kamala headquarters account regularly go viral, get millions of views. Without the fact checks or the community notes, they're not appearing on time. Well, they sometimes don't appear at all. Sometimes they appear days late where everyone's moved on. Where are all the disinformation campaigners, Josh? Because for a couple of years now, we've been told disinfo, misinfo, it's the great threat to democracy and we've got to stamp it out. But they seem to not be too perturbed about what's happening on social media right now.
Yeah, it's funny how that works, isn't it? How, when someone on the right says something that offends the prevailing idiosyncratic woke orthodoxy of the day, when they say something like that, immediately it is lambasted as misinformation. It is excoriated as disinformation. It is shadow banned. It is deplatformed. It is banned. It is nuked from the internet. You can't even find it in an internet archive if you look hard enough. And then when someone does this on the left, shall we say selectively editing, I guess, a deep fake, maybe you might even want to call it there. These people have such short memories. It was in June, in the lead up, in the weeks prior to the fateful June 27th presidential debate on CNN. It was actually the left. It was Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House press secretary here, all the folks at the DNC. They were the ones actually who were accusing Republicans and people on the right of selectively editing videos to make Joe Biden look a lot older and more decrepit than he actually was, according to their view. We all know that he actually is quite that senile. This was literally 2 months ago. How stupid do they think we are? Do they actually think that we don't have memories of literally 2 months ago? But now they have their bloodless coup. They have Kamala Harris in office there, or I guess as a presumptive nominee, and they think that now they can play the young person's card and try to make Donald Trump out to be older than, none of it makes sense. Say what you will about Donald Trump, your mileage may vary as to whether you like him as a politician. I certainly plan to vote for him, and I'm proud to do so. But no matter what you can say or not say about Donald Trump, the man is full of vigor and energy. He does not act and talk like his age, his mental acumen. It is very clearly not something that a normal person in his late 70s approaching on 80 would do.
He had an off-the-cuff 2-hour chat with one of the smartest men in the world right now, Elon Musk, a genius, discussing just dozens of topics without an auto cue, without notes. And if you want to pretend he's got some sort of cognitive decline, I think, well, you're basically speaking to low information voters and hoping they don't look any deeper. And sadly, a lot of them don't. Now, I mentioned the dream run Kamala's getting. I just want to show you an example. Politico is deriding Donald Trump because he's trying to tie the vice president to President Biden and his record on the economy. They seem to think that the Biden-Harris administration is some sort of a figment of Donald Trump's imagination. And they write it was a link Trump returned to repeatedly throughout his hour-plus speech, an effort to blunt Harris's polling and fundraising momentum by tethering her to Biden. The US media really is in the midst of a propaganda campaign unlike anything I've seen in my lifetime.
Yeah, look, Trump doesn't have to, quote unquote, tether Kamala Harris to Joe Biden. Kamala Harris tethered herself to Joe Biden when she agreed to be his running mate back in 2020. The Democrats this week in Chicago at their satanic convention are talking about what Kamala Harris is going to do in, God forbid, God help us, day one come January 2025. Kamala Harris's day one really was the same day one as Joe Biden back in January 2021. By the way, the Democrats, the Biden-Harris administration actually did on day one back in January 2021? They literally cut back and nixed in its entirety the Keystone XL pipeline, which would have delivered cheap, transformative natural gas and oil down to the Gulf of Mexico area from the Edmonton, Alberta tar sands up there. They cracked down on affordable energy. They turned America from what had been the first time in American history that the U.S. was a net exporter of fossil fuels under Trump. They made it a net importer of fossil fuels again. But the broader point here is that the entirety of the Joe Biden track record, the policy record, Kamala Harris can pretend like she wasn't there She was there. She was there every step of the way. And, again, what the media is doing right now, I go back to what I was saying a few minutes ago. How dumb do they think that we actually are? Because the media pretended to be real journalists, Rita. You saw it as well. They pretended to be real journalists for about a 3 to 4 week stretch from the June 27th catastrophic debate on CNN until they got their bloodless coup on July 21st. They were real journalists, and now they're in full-scale regime propagandist mode. They flipped on a switch. It is so disingenuous. It is so deceitful. The silver lining is that I think the polls actually are slowly starting to flip back towards Donald Trump's direction. The American people don't seem like they're going to buy it. We'll see what kind of bounce she gets at the convention. But again, if the pro-Hamas stuff really starts freaking out, she might not get much of a bump at all.
Well, just on that media campaign, conservative media watchdog, the Media Research Centre, has looked into this and found that since the Democrats dumped Joe Biden for Kamala Harris, the reporting from major media outlets like ABC, CBS, NBC has been overwhelmingly positive for Harris and overwhelmingly negative for Trump. That's not going to surprise anybody. They report that not only has Harris received 66% more airtime than former President Donald Trump, despite not doing any interviews, by the way, but the coverage of her has been positive 84% of the time, while Trump's coverage has been negative 89% of the time. So that just gives you an idea of the scale of what he's facing. I've only got 30 seconds, Josh. Is this campaign, this media campaign, too much for a candidate to overcome? Could he possibly overcome it like he did in 2016?
Without question. I mean, I'm not going to confidently predict, to the audience that Donald Trump's going to win this election, but I do think that if the election were held tomorrow, that Donald Trump would actually be the winner right now. I really do think that. Recall that America elects our presidents in the Electoral College. We don't elect our presidents in a national popular vote, and Republicans have something of a structural advantage in the Electoral College right now. Back in 2016, Trump lost the popular vote by about 2 points, won by a good amount in the Electoral College. Something very similar could happen this year. So again, if the election were tomorrow, I actually do think Donald Trump would prevail, believe it or not.
Josh Hammer, thank you so much for your time this evening.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.